Welcome to Only Human, where I discuss a topic that is fascinating to me, which is human psychology and behavior. Now, how did I get here? Why did I start this channel? In the early 2000s, there was a major change occurring where we slowly started to switch from television to streaming online platforms and other types of social media, where people would share events and opinions on social media platforms like Facebook. People would upload videos to platforms like YouTube where they would talk about their experiences, opinions, and beliefs. Listening to people talk and reading social media posts and comment sections, especially on topics like, for instance, nationalism, religion, and politics, I started to realize that our opinions seem to come mostly from our environment, the people around us that we admire and are major influences on our lives. I also started to realize that we are more emotional than rational. After a while, we start to form attachments to people, places, things, and ideas. And it's because of our emotion, biases, and the fact that we don't have time to consider large amounts of facts and information to form opinions that we run into cognitive bias. I slowly started to realize just how much cognitive bias plays into our lives and everyday thought processes. Cognitive bias is defined as a systemic thought process caused by the tendency of the human brain to simplify information processing through a filter of personal experience and preferences. The filtering process is a coping mechanism that enables the brain to prioritize and process large amounts of information quickly. While the mechanism is effective, its limitations can cause error in thought. Essentially, cognitive biases help humans to find mental shortcuts to assist in the navigation of daily life, but may often cause irrational interpretations and judgments. Some of the most common cognitive biases, and the ones that I seem to notice the most, are actor-observer bias. The actor-observer bias is defined as the tendency for an individual to credit their own situation to external causes while ascribing other people's behavior to internal causes. For example, you're waiting for someone to meet you at the movies. They're about 10 minutes late. You start to think, this person is inconsiderate. I would never do this to them. What kind of person is this that would have me sitting around waiting for them when we had an agreed upon time? But if it was you that was late, you, in your mind, it's because of traffic. It's because your grandmother called you and she had an emergency at the last minute and needed you to pick up something for her from the store. You understand that there are certain things that contributed to your tardiness, but when it's other people's, you think it's attributed to their personality and their character. The bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is described as the psychological phenomenon in which an individual does something because others, particularly a large group of others, are doing it. This action or behavior is done regardless of whether it aligns with the individual's personal belief or even factual evidence. Blind spot bias. Blind spot bias is defined as the tendency for the brain to recognize others' bias, but not its own. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is defined as the tendency for the brain to value new information that supports existing ideas. This is one we come across a lot. When we come across information that seems to validate what we already thought, our preconceived ideas and what our opinions are, we say, there's the proof. Now, things that don't seem to align with those thoughts and ideas that we had, we just kind of toss to the side. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is defined as the tendency for an individual with limited knowledge or competence in a given field to overestimate their own skills in that field. Groupthink. The tendency for the brain to place value on consensus. Self-serving bias. The tendency for an individual to blame external forces when bad things happen, but give themselves credit when good events happen. This applies to people and groups, kind of like the left versus the right. We tend to blame all the bad things that happen in the country to the other side. And when things happen to go well, things go the way we think they should, we attribute it to our side. Listening to people talk in person, on TV, and mostly online, I become fascinated with human psychology and behavior. And I was just shocked to find out how wrong I was about how we as humans operate, how we draw conclusions, form opinions, and come to believe what we believe.